Welcome everybody to the New Fly Fisher. I'm your host, Colin McKeown. Today's a really exciting day for me because for the first time I'm going to fish on the Bow River. We're going to be talking about grasshoppers, we're going to be talking about hopper patterns, we're going to be talking about how important grasshoppers are to the ecosystem. I better move out of the way here and I get run over. We're going to be talking about drift boating, about the rigging, etc. with the good people at Fishtails Fly Shop in Calgary, Alberta. It's going to be a great day. Pretty excited. Stay with us. The Bow River passes through three distinct geographical zones: the Rocky Mountains, the foothills, and then through the prairies. From Bow Lake and Banff National Park to the Grand Forks, where the Bow joins the Oldman River, is nearly 400 miles. Today we are fishing the incredibly nutrient-rich and trout-infested waters below the city of Calgary all the way to the town of Carsland. This section of the Bow is unquestionably the most famous because of the size, number, and strength of the trout who inhabit this stretch. It is not uncommon for a fly fisher to catch numerous fish between 20 to 24 inches in any given day. This is truly a world-class trout fishery.
Gary, but I've heard stories. Gary has a quote on fish. You don't get the stories about me.
In today's show, David Blair and Terry Johnson from Fishtails Fly Shop in Calgary are my guides to understanding how to correctly fish this river.
Right here, Terry. Right.
Joining us in another drift boat are experienced guides Ben Rudnick and Ron Ambrose. It is mid-September and we're fishing a rather unique catch, but one common to the west: grasshoppers. Grasshoppers are a widely distributed terrestrial insect that mature in late summer or early fall. The adults range from 3/4 to 2.5 inches long, and their bodies can range in coloration from drab tans to bright greens. The most common hoppers are a combination of yellow, brown, olive, and green. However, what is most important when selecting a hopper pattern is to match the terrestrials in size and silhouette.
The easiest way to set up a hopper rig, obviously, is just to tie a simple hopper onto the end of your 9-foot 3X leader, or whatever it happens to be that you're fishing, depending on the size of the fly. Here in Alberta, we are allowed to use 2 flies, and you do have to be conscious of your regulations in your area because you may not be allowed to use a double fly rig. Here we are, so we're going to set up a double hopper rig called a hopper dropper rig, or you can use it for a hopper rig. So what we do is we have a 9-foot 3X leader here, and we're going to attach on, using a blood knot, some 4X tippet, so that the hopper is going to sit off of the 3X tippet off to the side using the tag end of the blood knot, and the dropper fly, which is going to be at the moment a small prince nymph, and we'll change that throughout the day to see, and that's where the prince nymph is going to sit off of that. So this is how you set it up with using a blood knot. And remember to leave the 3X tag quite long.
This really shows it well.
Here it shows it really well that this is sitting off at 90 degrees right here. So you've got your hopper at 90 degrees, so that prevents as many tangles as possible all the way down to your second nymph or your second hopper, whatever you happen to be fishing with.
In most places I venture for trout, it is indeed rare when a fish can take me into my backing. On the Bow River, these supercharged trout make it the norm rather than the exception. From the tippet to the drag system on the reel, the need for quality equipment is paramount. On the Bow River, you can comfortably use an 8.5 to 9.5 foot 4 or 5 weight rod for most fishing. However, if you're going to cast double hopper rigs or streamers, then a good moderate to fast action 6-weight would probably be ideal. As you drift down the river, you will see conditions and hatches change, and versatility in the equipment and rigging options you have available will improve your hooking ratio immeasurably.
Okay, turn the rod to the left.
Here he comes, here he comes, here he comes.
There we go. Good job.
Oh, look at that!
Nice fish.
That one's a little thicker than the
It's
last
a
one.
fatter fish.
A lot fatter.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
That's getting up to the 22-inch range.
oh, look at that. What a beauty. Awesome. Way to go.
On the Bow River, the structure we are looking for is current breaks created by the weed beds extending out into the river. Large trout will hold in slack water created by these breaks and pick off food as it drifts by. Terry Johnson explains more about structure and how we're presenting the flies.
Another weedy bank here. We're just sliding down and Dave's kind of picking the pockets, and we're going to be going a little faster than his hooks, so he's going to have to do a little bit of casting. If we keep back rowing, we're never going to get down this river.
We'll catch you too many fish. But what we're trying to do is put our flies in the little pockets where the weeds go in and out, because the fish sit essentially under the weeds, and wait for a hopper to show up,
Or anything to go on top.
or an ant or a beetle or a blue-winged olive or whatever it happens to be. But like that looks like a nice little spot right there. But of course, we as fishermen think there's a fish in every single spot and that they're always hungry. Well, that's not
It
always.
probably is, but
It's not always the case.
yeah. Catching most of them right along these weed beds here. You can't get along these banks right now just because of these weeds, but if you can find a bank that's just rocks where it drops off into the water, it's usually pretty productive with the hopper. But this year we've had a lot of weeds, so we're out more in the middle of the river fishing these little spots. So Dave's just going along picking the little pockets. Yeah. Oh.
Snap me off in the weeds. Fishtails has been 5 years now that we've been having the shop and taking people out, and it's been a lot of fun. It's a great thing to be able to make a living out of something that you love to do and your hobby. It's just a great people that you meet, and I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing. Now, I'm lucky. I spend most of my time in the shop. This is like a day off for me. Terry's out here on the water every single day during the summer almost. And this is a nice little riffle right here, and we're going to try and get one out of here.
There you go. Now you can see it nice.
You can see it really well. I'm using a 4-weight at the moment for this, but 6-weight is definitely better.
Especially when you're casting 2 flies.
Yeah, a 2-fly rig is definitely better with a 6-weight. It just got that more power to kick it out, especially if the wind comes up.
Get along that edge, Dave. It drops right off.
That's and any 6-weight, as long as it's got enough power to kick flies into the wind. And again, you're not necessarily always able to use 2 flies, depends where you live.
But yeah, those hoppers, some of those hoppers get pretty big.
We're using
Those
a
patterns.
sort of a mid-sized one and a small one. Nice one.
Way to go, Ben.
Did it look like was it brown or rainbow? Oh, nice fish. Nice fish. You might need a bigger net.
That's it. Lead them over.
Throughout the day, the fishing varied in intensity. One moment, every third cast would produce a strike, and then suddenly, nothing would move to our hoppers. Often, this is a good time to either break for lunch or else change tactics. Switching to a hopper and dropper rig featuring a beadhead nymph can often improve your luck. Streamers, when fished correctly, can frequently kickstart large trout into being aggressive. The key for any good angler is versatility. There are a diverse number of hopper patterns available for anglers to use. The key is generally size and silhouette. The use of 2 hoppers in your setup, as allowed on the Bow River, certainly increases your chances of a strike from opportunistic trout. David Blair and Terry Johnson talked a little bit about why hopper patterns are so effective on the Bow and other western rivers.
These patterns are successful because there's lots of hoppers. If you're walking along the banks there, you'll see hundreds of hoppers out and active, especially in this warmer weather. They'll be out. This is kind of the mating season for them, so they're really active right now. And when you get a wind like this, kind of off and on during the day, it blows the odd hopper into the water. So they see more hoppers this time of year than say in the spring or even in the summer, just because the hoppers are so much more active. And when they see more of those hoppers, then they start to key on them.
It's also a very big meal too. It's a lot of energy packed into one bite.
You think about that fly, how big it is compared to some of those tiny little blue-winged olives that are out there right now. All they have to do is eat that hopper, and it's like eating 100 of those little mayflies. So it's the full meal deal.
Don't want to get that released.
Really too bad. Bo isn't living up to his reputation today.
They're cooperating.
Oh, we got long distance release.
The trout on the Bow River are extremely strong, a benefit of the rich and diverse diet of aquatic and terrestrial insects available. When hooked, these strong fish will quickly change directions, use currents to their benefit, and frequently dive into the thick weed mats. With this in mind, it is recommended that anglers use tippets of at least 4x in size. Normally, the use of finer tippets is not needed unless you're casting small dry flies to wary trout in shallow water. The key again is to use quality materials and good knots for all components of your leader and tippet setup.
There we go. Oh! There you go. There's your 20+ inch rainbow on a hopper.
That's the biggest rainbow I've ever caught in a fly rod.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Very good. Excellent. Yeah, that's a nice fish. You're biting the net, buddy. Now that is about as healthy a rainbow trout as you'll ever see. There you go, Colin. There's your biggest rainbow that you've ever caught.
Wow. And it goes to prove the hoppers do work.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Bow River is definitely one watershed where I strongly recommend you hire a good quality guide. Their up-to-date knowledge of current conditions and appropriate rigging and presentation options will greatly enhance your experience.
Oh,
That's good. Outstanding.
Great.
Okay, we're attempting to fish a double hopper combination, which is a dry presentation. We've seen a couple of rises over in this area. So what we're trying to do is present the flies in a dead drift manner without any drag, which is difficult because we're going across 3 or 4 conflicting currents. And the wind is blowing upstream. But we just keep trying. We're not getting a real long drift, but we're getting one that's maybe sufficient. Go across the lie. Oh,
Ron, there he
over
was,
there.
just
I'm
out.
trying a different fish now.
It's about 10 feet off that bank.
I think it's a little farther than that.
A little
isn't it?
further.
Oh,
Oh,
he missed it. I just had a miss. I think it was a small one, eh?
Try him again. Sometimes they'll take a look at it and deny it the last second.
Okay. Okay. I'll give him another shot, man.
3 strikes and you're out, Ron.
Yep, 3 strikes and that's all you get.
Good cast.
They're very much alive when they hit the water, and they'll move their legs and try to control their environment, but they can't, of course. They're at the mercy of the current.
It's also good to let your hoppers land with a bit of a splat sometimes.
Yes.
It kind of announces dinner to the trout. It's not like when you're casting a size 20 mayfly, you want to present it delicately, but with hoppers, you don't have to be as delicate. You can just splat them on the river, and sometimes it'll arouse a trout.
Well, that was pretty good. It's a little bit easier for some reason casting downstream right at the moment. I'll try a little bit closer. It's dragging pretty good now. So I'll just give it a pull and let it drift.
I think I'll retire the hopper rod. Oh, that's a big fish. Oh! That's a fat fish. Oh, that's a nice fish. See, that's the problem with those short-handled nets.
Good job, guys.
Nice.
The Bow River requires that fly fishers must generally be able to cast medium to long distances accurately. One of the most important casts used on this river to get the longest drift possible is known as the reach cast. David Blair explains a little about this and mending.
David, why don't you explain to me why this bank is so ideal in terms of the fish holding and then the type of cast we're using here?
Well, we're using a reach mend cast, and that just gets the fly line upstream of the flies, and that way you get a little bit longer drag-free drift. And this bank is just perfect because it drops off very, very steeply right into the water, so the fish can sit right close to shore and feel very comfortable because they're still in deep water. So you just put your hopper right along the weed edge that's along the shore, and they'll sit there and they'll just come right out, and they'll either eat the hopper or they'll come after the little nymph that's trailing after behind it. Ideally, you get them to come up and eat the hopper, but you put it right along the weed edge here, which could be anywhere from 1 foot to 3 feet out from the shore on a bank like this. On a shallower bank, it may be 4 or 5 or 6 feet. So those are the this is the kind of place that you can hopper fish and do extremely well if the fish are sitting there looking for a hopper. Which a day it's beautiful, it's bright, it's sunny. You can hear the hoppers all around us right now, and so that means they're active. They end up in the water, and that's what the fish look for.
Not real big, but I think it's a nice one. Oh, it's just a little guy. Nice brown? All right.
Okay, let him go, buddy. He is good to go.
I was fishing a hopper dropper, but now changing to a rather large hopper up the line, and then a smaller hopper trailing behind it. We're going to fish the same weed edges until we get to the riffles. And basically we want to cast a little bit upstream, make a little bit of a mend, and get a dead drift over possible fish holding lies.
Swipe at it. See it? Beautiful fish. Okay, here you go. You ready?
Yeah. All right, my first
Beautiful brown.
Bow River brown. Beautiful
Double hopper?
That's the size. If you're, you'll see a lot like that on the bow, and larger too, which is.
Well, that one we saw earlier was
Yeah.
a lot larger. That thing
Well,
was
they
huge.
stick their heads out. Feed so nicely.
There's a nice number on my fly here.
There you go.
Twisted it up nicely.
Look at that. Right under the weed.
Boom, into the weeds and.
To learn more about the patterns we use today, for information about the Bow River in Alberta, or to read more about our series, then please visit us on the World Wide Web at www.thenewflyfisher.com. Thanks for joining us, and
Okay.
see you next week.
Nice healthy rainbow, ready to go back to the water. We'll just get him out past the mud here a little bit. There we go. All right, excellent.
To order a copy of your favorite New Fly Fisher episode, contact us through our website at www.thenewflyfisher.com or call us at 613-836-8295. Copies of this educational series make an excellent gift for your favorite angler or friend, and they also make a good addition to your reference library. $14.95 for one VHS tape plus shipping and handling. Order 3 tapes and only pay $39.95 plus shipping and handling.